Music in itself is not dense per se, but the music that you'll find in this type of is predominantly dense. So for me personally, if I want to dance to something, I just dance to Chief's music, and I feel like it's the best kind of music for me, for my vibration to get better. A lot of music that you'll find, popular music, is to feed on you, is to open you up. Like Nara introduced us to a lot of this sound therapy, or sound instruments that are literally used to open up your energy for you to be fed on. So in popular music, you'll find a lot of these same types of sounds and frequencies that open you up. That's a lot of times what frequency is about too. It's about opening you for feeding. So if you enjoy dancing, you can dance, like I said, to Chief's music, or you can make up your own music. You know, record yourself making, even if you don't play an instrument, you can make your own sounds or your own, and make your own little mixtape, and then dance to that. Because I feel like you like, you like the thought of rhythm, you like the feeling, because it's very natural.
Right.
I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, no, it was. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I know a lot of people in the States, lately it's been coming out that that's what they've been doing for like mind control and like feeding off of people's energy, is the frequencies that they put in the music. Like a lot of artists, like I know a few of them who, like, before they committed suicide, they were like really going on rampages, like, oh, they made us do this, they forced us to put these frequencies in the music, and it's like making me go crazy, like stuff like that. So there's really something that I can agree with, like it's definitely a control thing.
Thank you, Nelly. They have, I don't know if you recall, there's been a study that had to do with plants, and they put different types of music to where and they put the plants there for a certain amount of time, and the music affected them in different ways, like especially like death metals, things like that. It killed the plants.
Yeah, I do.
So
yeah, I can't stand that type.
No.
Yeah, me neither. Um, One of the questions I was going to ask you ladies is, recently there's been a lot of talk about different mindsets that are very new age, because I come from, as you know, a church cult background. So sometimes when you're trying to run away from one trap, you end up in another, which could be like new age, things like mindfulness, things like chakras, things like divine feminine, divine masculine, or even, whatever type that you find yourself. Do you have any questions like that? I might have some information.
Well, I know I recently mentioned something about chakras to Chief, and he kind of like made that make sense. And I felt like what I gathered from what he explained to me was that even acknowledging like just chakras is boxing that in.
Yes. There, for you can look through for it all throughout everything in your life. What is trying to put you in a box? Like church is a box. Media has different types of boxes. Even the way you think about cooking or exercise. I have to do 10 reps on this side and 10 reps on this side. Or fear that you'll be huge on one side and small on the other. Be afraid that your body will be unproportionate. Like, what?
No, it's true.
So, yeah.
And that was what I was thinking, like the other day. I'm like, I have to, everything that I've learned is basically a program. So like I have to like unprogram everything: exercise, cooking, food. Yeah, like all the things that you said.
That's so true. Like Nara always says, I have to reprogram myself or unprogram myself. And I don't know why, but when you say that, I think about, like, for example, how Chief says that this kind of realm is like being in the pimple on the ass of the universe. Like, so it's understandable that every single thing that's out there that's available for you to take part in is a program because you're inside of the most dense part. And it's like the universe is your home, and the universe is balanced, and it has a mindset that we. So, for example, all of us were taken from our home, and we learned a poisonous behavior, which is programming and other kinds of things that have happened to the consciousness. And now Chief is able to teach us how to go back home. But sometimes it's really hard to let go of the behavior we learned when we left home. So now we have to readjust ourselves to where we can go home. So sometimes when he tells me something that's very uncomfortable for me, or something I don't want to accept that's true about myself, I realize I need to accept this because he's trying to teach me how to go home. And that's what I really want more than anything. And there's nothing that I want to hang on to that's worth letting go of home.
Yeah.
That's honestly been like how I kind of like visualize it more so than try to put it into words. It's like I have somewhere to go, and none of this has ever been here to like help me get to where I'm trying to go back to. And it's always like a go back to, but it's like a better version of the idea of what you think you even are.
Yeah. I know that it's many times really uncomfortable when there's something that we use as a comfort item that is a program. It's so hard to let that go, but that is keeping you from home. So it's like, this is in the way of me getting to where I want to go. So I got to let it go, even if it hurts. I know that there's, like, for example, when it came to comforting myself through items, like objects, things like when I was a kid, you have like a comfort blanket, or you have a comfort food, or you have comfort music. Like when I used to get stressed, I used to start singing just randomly and out of the blue. And it's not wrong to sing. So density wants to tell me like, oh, see, they're just trying to get in the way of your singing, But really, I was just holding on to the past as a way to comfort myself, instead of just containing what's making me uncomfortable and throwing it into the vortex of no return. I was instead just using an old tool. A lot of times Chief wants to tell you you're using an old tool to comfort yourself. You can release that and find a better balance to yourself, and where you won't be dependent on this tool, because in that case I was using singing almost like a fetish, like a necklace or some beads or some kind of magic stone or something. Is there anything that you can relate to in terms of that kind of old tool that you use?
I definitely
remember when
feel
I
like.
first. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I can sometimes like comfort food. Like I remember I would always get these rice crackers when I was stressed out, and so I would know I was stressed out when I was eating those because they would just be like my go-to, food. I can relate to that.
That's great.
What were you gonna say, Nellie?
When I first met Chief and Miss A, I remember I had a necklace with like this huge stone, and like for a few months I was just so into it. And then when I got there, Chief was like, yeah, no. And I was like, all right. But it was just like, up until that point, it was something that I relied on. Like I wouldn't leave the house without it. And if I did, I felt naked. And it was just like, I understand now, like how much I used it for comfort.
But Nelly dropped it like it was hot when she said it wasn't good for her. I was like, whoa, where did she come from? Wow. Yeah, and I did also have to realize to be patient with myself, to understand that if I can't drop something like it's hot, at least start to let it go piece by piece. And if Chief says, you really should just get rid of it entirely, then that's when I feel like I need to just take that risk and just throw it away completely, like Nelly did. I don't know why, but this reminds me of one time I had this missing tooth, and it was like hanging by a thread. But out of fear, I just let it dangle there. And it's kind of like when he asks you to let something go, and it's right there. It's just like about to fall off anyway, but you're still like, no,
Right.
if I pull this tooth off, it might come in crooked. I'm like, it's barely even there anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also understand the part that you were saying, like the slow releasing things slowly versus like being able to like just cut it off. I like my process is in doing that is I want to understand the like why was I attached to it and making like mental notes of like understanding like if it comes back again in a different form, I could recognize it and things like that.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah. Like, for example, sometimes people will let go of a toxic person in their life, but they're still open to the thought of replacing that toxic person with someone else, similar in behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's it's a very complicated elaborate video game that they have us stuck in, and it's got all types of weird levels in it, like stress games, like high school, college. There are all these strange games where they stress you out. Work. I had a dream recently where I was at work at a bakery, and they're like, you have to do all these cakes over again because everyone messed it up and you're the only worker in the bakery. I'm like, what scenario is this? Mm, in terms of mindfulness, do you have any concepts that you feel that have like kind of stuck themselves on you, and you have any questions about it, or is that anything?
I definitely feel like I still probably have some concepts of mindfulness that might be stuck a little bit, or because like, yeah, I feel like I used to meditate like daily, and I thought I was making progress, and then once I came to like Chief, I was like, oh no, I wasn't making any progress. I was kind of stagnant. But like you, Chief, and you did teach me like one strategy that sometimes I use, sometimes that kind of like I feel like it doesn't relate, but it's replaced in a sense, like mindfulness for me.
Right. Chief, actually, he's changed it around to where, because sometimes people, like we talked about, they have a hard time with just cold turkey dropping something. So instead of like allowing it to be an issue, he like does a judo move and turns it around to where focusing your mindfulness on something that's actually beneficial. So being mindful of when you are feeling afraid or when you're feeling stressed, like for example, a certain situation happened and I'm suddenly start to purge, like I start sweating or I start coughing and sneezing, and I'm just like, what is going on? But I remembered, okay, someone is treating me like someone in the past treated me, and it's making me my body just have a reaction as if it's trying to put me back into the time when I was really stressed or back into the time when I was around a lot of toxic people. And I realized, okay, I need to contain those memories and throw them in the vortex of no return and realize that I can be free. Because sometimes there's this, I don't know about you, but this feeling of like fatalistic mindset. Like this has happened to me in the past and will always happen to me in the future.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I used to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when you want to take the next step, you want to go beyond fear of what people think about you, fear of what you think about yourself, even like afraid to feel that you have the same issues that people you really hate or people you really dislike have. Like almost like I can't have those issues because so and so has those issues. And if I'm anything like them, then I hate myself. That kind of stuff.
No,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I
and
struggled with both of those before.
that's well, I think I've recently been trying to be more mindful about when I'm when I am feeling that behavior come up. Like even when you're watching a movie, or
Mm-hmm.
even when you're
Oh
walking on the
yes.
street and someone looks just like that person that you
Mm.
used to know that made you really stressed or really anxious, then I just begin to do containment barrier exercise, the heavy duty Pac-Man on everything, and I just calm myself down.
Yeah.
That's what I recently started doing with movies. Like, I've always liked a good story played out in a movie versus like a specific genre, like something that like can make sense to me. So like
Hmm.
I found that I think it was like a month ago I saw something and it was like about a kid with like his mom or something like that, and I started like crying, and I was like, I was like, we got rid of all of that, and I contained it, and I was like, I just want to enjoy this movie, like let it just enjoy it, and I stepped away for like a few minutes, came back, and I was able to like watch it without a tear in my eye, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, I could totally relate to certain things being very triggering. For example,
Mm-hmm.
when my dad died when I was around 21 years old or something like that, and like after that, I felt like anytime I watched a movie where a dad died, I felt really bad. But then I
Mm-hmm.
met Chief's daughter, and she really changed my perspective around it. Because I told her, I feel like I have a hole in my chest, and that it's like a black, it's like just constantly sucking it in. It's like it can't be fed, almost like a feeling like it just can't be satisfied, this sadness, the sad feeling. And she told me to visualize it like a circle, like a sticker, and peel it off of my chest and then throw it in the vortex of no return. And I did that, and I was like, oh my, it worked. Oh, in my
That's
chest, it
awesome.
feels better. And it's just like, it's getting to see things from a totally different perspective. Like, for example, when movies hit you in a certain way, they're trying to get an emotional response from you. So
Mm-hmm.
instead, you're using containment barriers. So what you're doing is deflecting it, looking at it at a different angle, containing it, and then getting rid of it. And it's that kind of perspective has changed my life in so many aspects. It didn't matter whether it was talking to people, watching movies, or even like going through situations and just not taking it so serious because we're in this crazy video game.
Right.
Try again.
One thing I've been telling a lot of people lately is like life is only as serious as we make it in our minds.
Yeah,
Because if you
totally.
shift your perspective, it could be way better than how you were doing it the other way.
Yeah. I know people tend to think that you're kind of like for example, have you seen this movie Littlefoot, I believe? No, not Littlefoot, but it's about it's a recent Pixar movie about a
Mm-hmm.
dinosaur. Um, and it has where his it's a animated film where the young dinosaur is trying to live up to his family, what they need to do on the farm, and the father ends up dying. And I had relatives that watched the movie and they cried a lot, like there was so much waterworks. And they looked at me like, "Why aren't you crying?" But I had already, Chief had already ripped those memories out and ripped that type of density and program out. So I was just like, I'm just not sad. And they're like, "You're not human. There's something wrong with you." You know, they try to make you feel bad for wanting to exit the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Is it called The
But
Good
Yeah.
Dinosaur?
Good Dinosaur, I believe it's
Okay.
called that.
I'm like, I
I
love a good movie.
Yeah. Um, if you, one of the exercises I do, if you feel like doing it, when I watch movies, I look for programming. That's
Mm.
my like the main reason that I watch it sometimes. Like I like stories, but I do keep in mind that most of the stories in movies are made by Palladians
Right.
at this point. But
Like now I
I
can
just
feel it when I watch something. I'm like, oh, I gotta turn it.
yeah, because I came from when I was younger, I had a lot of traumatic molestation issues going on. And when I would watch movies and things, I would be triggered. And I would watch, there was a recent animation called Hero Academia. And it was about these young kids who went to a school where they trained to be heroes and help people. And when I was young, I wanted to be a hero because I felt like there was no one to help me when I was going through molestation issues. And I felt like I need to be there for women when they're, going through these things. But then I realized, like, no, everyone needs to row their own boat. Everyone needs to help themselves in their own way because they they will not get their own inner strength if you're always there just doing I had become like an enabler, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't helping myself move past the trauma. It was like every woman I saw was reminding me of the past instead of just letting it go into the vortex of no return.
That's
But
exhausting.
yeah,
I totally can relate to that. Like when the emotion just keeps resurfacing and stuff like that, like as a reminder, and it's like,
yeah, that just means that there's still more of that same type of energy that's still in there. And
mm-hmm.
sometimes there's a part of you that will want to block it out because it views it as pain when it's not anything more than an experience in this video game. And you can literally delete and
Like
be
playing it back like a
free.
movie.
Yeah, exactly. And they want it to be on like replay over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, Nara and Miss J asked me a really good question one night, and they said, "Can you describe about MCs, like mirror consciousness and things?" And Chief gave me this really wonderful explanation, and I share it anyway, again, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But so I told them about what Chief told me. It's like, for example, there's a traumatic experience in your life. Like, for example, when I was in first grade, there was this guy on the playground, and for some reason he was like a very mafia type boy. He like was very gangster, and he decided that he wanted me to be his girlfriend by force. And
Wait, you were in
I
the
was
first
like,
grade?
yeah, I was in the first grade, and he sent these like hoodlums to come get me, and he sent these guys after me, 3 of them. So I'm just playing by myself because I just have been a loner all my life. And they come over and they're like, "Hey, that guy over there wants you to be his girlfriend." And I'm like, "Okay, oh great. Do I get an opinion?" And then I was like, "No, I don't want to be with them." So the guys decide that they're gonna grab me and put my hands behind my back and drag me over there to that boy. And I was like, "Oh, no, no, no." And so I kicked the guy in his private areas, and he falls on the ground. And I look at the other 2 boys like, "What, you want some, huh?" And then they all ran away. And obviously I didn't have to become a part of his harem. But that situation was like a snapshot, like if you were to take a photo. So a photo was taken of that situation, and a little fragment came out of the picture. A girl who feels like men are evil. A girl who feels like life is dangerous. A girl who feels like no one is there to protect me, so I have to protect myself. So this fragment walks out of the photo, and that is what a mirror consciousness starts out as. But then most of the time, density, or all the time, density will take that little fragment and put programming into it to where it becomes like a little robot and repeats itself over and over. No one is there to help me. Everything is dangerous. Men are dangerous. I have to protect myself. So then, as I grew up, it became defensive of everything. Even when Chief would try to give me good advice, even when Chief would try to help me to understand programming, it'd be like, defense. He's trying to hurt me. But really, it's just this part that looks so familiar, feels so familiar, but it's just a mirror consciousness. just a part that needs to be deleted. It's like a glitch in the video game that you feel is yourself. And when density can make you think that this is you, then density has an easy way to hack into you and play you like a video game. You become the avatar, and it's really difficult to, it makes it, Chief can rip anything out, but it makes it hard on him when you keep creating the same MC. You know, 5 of those guys last week, and you're just like, I need to defend myself. Men are evil. You know, it's like the same program repeating the same voice in your head. So I've definitely had my issues with defensiveness, like when they were trying to, maybe you should not eat the whole pot of soup that I cooked. This is Chief. And I'm like, I'm sorry, comfort food, you know, but it's like that I wasn't realizing that that was a real issue, because people would say, oh, it's no big deal. Everyone does it. But this realm is the pimple on the ass of the universe. Why do I want to behave like everyone else?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But is there anything like that you could relate to, where you felt like there was like a snapshot in your life where an MC was created?
Yeah. I definitely I feel like the circular of happening over and over again. Like I remember, and this is probably even a snapshot that created an MC. I'd watch movies with my family, and I always cried at movies, no matter if there was anything, I cried. So then they would always look at me as if there's a sad part, and then they would start laughing at me.
Oh,
and then
wow.
yeah. So it was like, and then it was just like repeating that a little bit over time.
Right.
So
yeah.
And now if I get
now if you get what?
If I get any kind of emotion, I'm like, okay, contain. Like, no, there is no need to cry at this or feel anything about this. Like, no, feeding.
Oh.
Yeah.
That has definitely been something. When I was in the cult, in the Christian cult, they were very encouraging of like crying. Like that was like, that meant that you were really allowing the Lord to, touch you.
Or like the soul cleansing itself.
Yeah, exactly. Soul cleansing, or like you were releasing. So that was what I was talking about, dense tools. I thought that, okay, I just need to go find a place alone and cry, and let it out. And I didn't realize that I was feeding density. And when Chief told me, you're feeding density, I had so much denial. I was like, no, I am not. But then it's like, I had to like face myself, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to fight this thing. And it literally sometimes feels like you're ripping tree roots out of your chest. And it hurts, but just keep pulling on those roots, and eventually you'll get them out. And I've had to do that sometimes. I had to visualize the density like a tree root in my chest, and contain it and literally pull it out, and then throw it in the vortex of no return. Yeah, because it really integrates into your energy and spreads like a root system. Because people think, Frank, I don't know if you've ever tried to get rid of a very aggressive weed. If you just rip the top off, you still have a whole root system where it can grow itself back. And that's really how density works. If you just deal with, for example, like you said, emotions, if you only deal with it sporadically, you're not getting all the root system out of your energy, so it can grow little leaves again. And if you let any of the leaves grow, it stays in you. Yeah.
I remember for me, Chief helped me realize that one of my mirror consciousness was the idea of not being enough, and just understanding like that came from my childhood with my mother, like, not living up to her standards and all that. And then anytime I got rejected growing up, it was like, oh, well, I'm not good enough. And then like the whole list of why I wasn't good enough just ended up somehow merging with the list of my mom's. And I'm like, now that I understand what it was, I'm like, how did I ever make that make sense? Like it didn't make sense then, but it was, I get why it was part of the program, because it was all like an illusion. And it was just like, I went through so many unnecessary moments.
Yes,
like just
yes.
beating myself up for no reason, just because I didn't understand it. And I was so caught up in that program. And it's like, I get
right.
it.
That's a great example. For example, in my life, I've had to deal with that as well. I've had very demanding relatives. Like if you were to ask the relatives, they would say, "Oh, we're not demanding," but their behavior was otherwise. And I had to literally contain. I would think about, okay, so for example, this high expectation of myself, like you said about your mom, and feel like I had to look into myself, preferably before a session, so that if you do something too wild, you can get repaired by Chief. So I would wait till like right before the session, and then I would think about, okay, what memory stands out the most painful to me, or that makes me feel the worst when it comes to expectations. So I would see that memory, and then I would contain it. Heavy duty Pac-Man, layer after layer, one after another, until I couldn't feel it anymore, until what is considered pain started to become dull, less and less. And then after that, I threw it in the vortex of no return. I just felt the feeling just begin to fade. So every intense memory that had to do with expectations, I began to let that go. Every intense memory where I felt like that someone made me feel like I was worthless. I contained that over and over, layer after layer, 100 layers if I had to, but layer after layer, and until it felt dull and dull, and then I would throw it in the vortex of no return, and it really has changed me. I still have some like bubbles that come up when it comes to my value or worth. But I know that those are fading too. I'm confident that I'm on the right journey and I'm going forward. So I'm not too worried about, oh, I feel the feeling. I'm just like, contain and throw it in the vortex of no return.
When I have my little bubbles, I think of those affirmations that you gave me where you're like, I commit to light. I am is that I have balance. I am of supreme consciousness. I have it in my phone, and every time I'm like, okay, I have to go read it, and I'll read it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, all right, and it's just like my quick fix to like help me understand that I'm in that space.
Yeah. I had to tell myself, I am a supreme consciousness, therefore I have worth. I have always have and always will. Because density will always that's the one. They'll always try to get you to put your worth in what you do. Put your worth in how much you can produce, how much your quality of work, how much performance you can have or you can do. They want you to put your value in that, when just being of supreme consciousness, just desiring to be balanced again is your worth. Just the fact that you so desire to go home, to be balanced again, that's your value. All these other people who their value is their occupation, their value is their stuff, their value is how many friends they have, but those friends are not even really their friends.
And that's really showing up a lot now with all the lockdown and stuff like that. Like I've completely been off social media. I've just been home painting because I go on social media. I'm like, everybody just wants to be seen, or like they're doing like just pulling energy from anywhere they can. And it's like, it's so pathetic. It's like a cesspool of just density right now. And I'm just like, perfect time for me to be off of it.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people have a problem being alone because they don't really like themselves. They don't really know who they are. And a lot of times they don't like themselves because they feel they view attachments and mirror consciousness as themselves. And they've also they're buried underneath lifetime expression after expression of density. So it's like they don't know where they begin and the attachments and MCs end. It's just this hodgepodge collage.
My brother's going through a really bad one. He's been him and his wife have had their moments. He's been saying that he's been stressed out over money because they have 3 kids. 2 of them were like back to back. They're still in diapers. So he had a lawsuit, and he's like, no, I'm gonna change as soon as I get this money, like, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, but there's some things in there you might want to work on that are internal, like, that have nothing to do with money. He's like, I'm fine. So he recently gets the money, and he's like cool for like a good week. And then his wife calls me one day, and she's like, have you talked to your brother? And I was like, no. She's like, did he tell you what's going on with him? And I was just like, erectile dysfunction. And she was like, how do you know? I was like, I don't know, and then she was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, because he's not dealing with his, in my mind, I'm like, he has mirror consciousness, and he thought that the money was going to replace, what he was putting her through. And it's like, no, the money has nothing to do with it. He's just has to deal with a lot of stuff that he's avoiding, so now he has this huge void where it was like stress over money, where you can't even use the money as an excuse anymore. So it's like now the energy has to circulate and do something else inside of you. So I'm like, it's manifesting like in a different way.
Interesting.
And she was saying that even when he was trying to apologize for it, he almost was going to say, yeah, it's because I'm stressed. But like he stopped himself because he's like, I can't use that excuse anymore. So like she's seeing now like his pattern and like how he just is on this like hamster wheel of like emotions, like, but just in different ways with different things. And I'm like, I don't know how you guys do it.
Yeah, I know that people, a lot of times, for example, the programming of money is a way to cover up the real issues. Because if there wasn't this constant feeling like you have to make money to support yourself or make money to live, then you could focus on the bigger issues with, respect and consideration for yourself, or where you are energetically, or your health. Some people, they put money way over their health, and they by the time they have money, they're croaking, they're dying.
Yeah. And that's one thing that people are dealing with is like the issues with the money right now, like, and how you were saying like they can't sit with themselves because they have to face all those other things.
Yeah.
Like now that money's not the factor because nobody's working, like you have to deal with all these other things.
Right. It's rough. I remember when I first started sessions with Chief's daughter, I tried to keep myself busy constantly. I had project after project. Like in a day, I would wake up and play the guitar. I would go to school. I would do homework on lunchtime. And then after school, I would run, go to the gym, play basketball. And then in the middle of the night, I'd play the guitar. So it was like, and then barely sleep because then I'd wake up in the morning and run. And so it was like this constant, I have to stay in motion, or the voices in my head are going to drive me nuts.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you ask your neighbor, hey, do you have voices in your head? And then they're like, you're crazy. I'm like, I know you do. I know you do. Don't deny it. I don't know if is there anything that you feel is a constant voice in your head, like a phrase that you hear sometimes? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do have that. I don't know if I have a specific phrase that I'm thinking of, but the other day I was like, okay, right now I'm just going to keep the vortex open, and anything that comes, it's going right up. Like anything that I think, and like sometimes in my mind, I think I'm talking to someone. Oh, vortex. Like, no, I'm not talking to someone. Like that's, a mere consciousness or an attachment. So, and it was just really interesting. It was kind of cool. Like I could talk to someone, but if something came up, I still was able to throw it in the vortex too. And it was like, oh, I kind of liked that. Like it was like,
that's a cool one.
Yeah. I recently asked Nellie. I showed Nara a movie, and Miss J watched it as well. The Mad Detective. I don't know if anyone else has watched it.
It's called
I can
what?
send the link. The Mad Detective. I can send the link if you like. And
yes.
Yeah, okay. It's a great movie to show about how you are not alone, like ever really. You know, uh, like a lot of people, they want to deny that they hear voices because they don't want to face the issue that they're not by themselves, and that they have a whole community inside of them of entities, and they because they don't understand why, and because of this feeling like they don't understand something, there's this huge fear of what they don't understand, fear of what they're not familiar with, fear of the unknown. That is a really big issue for people. That's why sometimes I feel like there's many reasons, but fearing death is a part of fearing what they consider the unknown.
Right.
But in the movie The Mad Detective, it's not teaching, it's just a show, but really it's about how he just gives this movie just gives a small glimpse into how many attachments a person can have following them around at all times. Like instead of one person that you see on the street, it's like 12 people huddling around and walking with that person. And so when you think of when someone, for example, wants to hit you up on the street, it actually might not be that person who really wants to talk to you. It's actually the attachment in that person who is hijacking that person's avatar and using their mouth and talking through them. So you think, oh, that's just Jack, the neighbor. Nope, it's actually the entity that's inside of him. Because I don't know if you had this experience, but like for example, I've talked to some really dense people, relatives and things, where you're having a logical conversation. For example, I've had relatives where we have 5 minutes till we need to go to a certain appointment, but suddenly they want to clean the entire house in 5 minutes, and you're just like, seriously, we can clean when we get back. Why didn't you think about this 5 hours ago? And you want to say something logical, but then you look at their eyes and they'll like glitch, and then and they're like, we need to clean the house, hurry, hurry. And I'm like, did you just see what you just did? It was like the attachment reset the avatar.
I first started noticing that when I stopped drinking alcohol. Not that I was ever big on it because I have a low tolerance, but the more I was around people when they drank and I wasn't drinking, I would see the switch. And I'm like, who are you right now? You just turned into like 5 different people. Like just going through like the different levels, and like it makes sense because it's like completely different versions of energy. And it's just like, whoa.
It's like that person. I had the privilege of watching Chief work on people, and it's like for example, one stereo has a Bluetooth signal that can pick up from many people all at once. And literally this person has maybe like many attachments, and they're all trying to tap into the speaker, tap into that signal. And so then, like you said, you see a person who gets drunk and they have 5 different personalities all in 1 hour. And you're just like,
yes,
what
it's crazy.
the heck?
I'm like,
what?
So that's why containment barriers is so important, because you're not just containing Jack, you're containing him and his entire community. Because when they talk to you, it's to feed on you. They're not talking because they want to be friendly and chummy. They're like, you look tasty, but they can't say that, right? They got to say, you look sexy, but translation, you look tasty.
Well, and I even saw like personality disorders. I'm like, no, that's their attachments talking. Like it's not, like.
Yeah.
But
there's movies like that. There was, I forget this. There's several movies. If anyone has the names of it, I don't keep that in my mind because it's not very important to me. But there are a lot of movies where they're showing someone who's schizophrenic, and they have like maybe like 10 different personalities, and they're all very, very extremely different. And they say, oh, it's just because that person has had a hard life. Well, those are many times different like attachments, or sometimes fragments of their consciousness. It's very complex in the way that consciousness have been damaged in this pimple on the ass of the universe.
Right.
I love that.
So, but you know, it's great. It's really great to have sessions with Chief, because he can explain to you your personal issue, whether it be fragmentation or attachments, mere consciousness, whatever the issue is. And it just makes things a lot clearer. Like, personally, I see Chief's advice as a compass. It keeps me knowing where north is, so I don't get my ass lost in this dark forest.
That's how I use the book. I use Chief's book like that. I'm like, oh, wait, all right. If it's something personal, then I'll ask. But other than that, I'm like, I know I can go to the book. I know I can go to the book. It's like, all right, I got it.
Yeah, we had a client recently who joined. There was like this mass meditation, like global meditation.
I saw that.
And so Chief says that it's best for people to walk into their own walls so that they can learn their own lessons and not blame you for everything, and also to be able to navigate their lives. So I was like, Chief, I should tell him no, right? I should tell this person no, like don't do the mass meditation. He's like, no, just tell him to read my book, because I talked about group meditation. And I'm like, okay, I will. And of course the person's like, I read it already. And I was like, okay.
No,
So
you didn't.
this person does it anyway, and I'm just like, oh boy. And then he starts calling me repeatedly over and over and over, and I just keep, hanging up, because he's really talks himself out. During the group meditation, not only did this person open themselves up to all the people who were meditating on the same thing. So you're allowing a flow of their density into your own energy.
Oh my goodness.
Not only was this person toxed out, but there were also people who came onto the meditation who specifically came to feed. So his energy was toxed and his energy was drained. And so he was feeling really bad. But she has gave him an intense session as usual, and he felt a lot better. And he learned a good lesson.
Lady I encountered, she was like, yeah, I do Reiki healing and all this stuff. Like, you should let me do it for you. Like, I'm like, girl, if you think I'm ever going to let you touch me. But I was so forward. I was like, I'm cool. I got this. I'm cool. I was like, no, are you crazy?
Yeah. When I was in the Christian cult, they would have this thing where they would have everyone hold hands.
Yes. That was the craziest thing.
Yeah, it's like.
And all I pictured when she said that was like her working on me, and like everything that's attached to her and that's attached to those attachments, and those attachments were like feed off of me. And I was like, no,
that's right.
That just doesn't look right.
There's a whole daisy chain of attachments connected to
I'm
attachments.
like, no.
Yeah. It was definitely like recently I've been purging out of my fingertips. I'd get little welts. And it was a part of that was all the experiences of holding really dense people's hands every day of the week at church. It was
every day. Oh, you were going every day.
Yeah, every day. It was so intense.
I couldn't stand doing it only on Sundays. I'd be like, I'm not touching nobody.
I'm so happy I survived. But I'm here to tell the story.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. But everyone has to purge it out. So it's just a part of along the journey. Because it's like, okay, my hands look really messed up, but this is a part of the journey. I just need to go through it. It hurts, it itches, but really I don't need to see it as pain. I need to see it as a language that my body is telling me what's happening with my energy. Yeah. I recently like I know a lot of times in the pharmaceutical realm they teach you to, like, when you have a pain, take a pill immediately. But really, if you have a pain, that means that something's happening in your energy. So I do the containment. I do when I throw it into the vortex of no return, or I ignore them, because sometimes they'll give you pain because they want to get a certain kind of negative energy feeding off of you. So if you're like, you know what, I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm not going to let an emotional response come from this pain that I have. I'm going to keep moving forward, and I'm going to focus on something more productive. Sometimes I'll read Chief's book, or I will do something else, and the pain will go away because they didn't get what they wanted.
Right.
There's another client, and she had some ghosts around her house because she's looking around and there's no one around, but she's hearing the sound of footsteps, like crunching leaves coming towards her, and it's getting closer and closer. So instead of being afraid, she just says, "You promised to leave me alone, or I'm going to tell Chief." And she just visualizes Chief's face, and suddenly the footsteps stop walking, and there's silence. And I guess the guy was like, "No, it's not worth it."
Cool.
So instead of fear, she just was like, she stood up to him in a way
Like, I
where
got something for you.
Yeah, exactly. Because in the dense realm, they'll try to get you to like evoke another dense entity name, which opens you up to feeding from some other entity. Like, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I
Oh my
command you
gosh,
to
that
stop.
happens to me sometimes. Like, and I feel like it's when I go out, and it's something that I've been paying attention to more, where if I'm out around people, especially with everything going on, if I go to the grocery store, you know, people are like having these conversations where you'll hear the Jesus because of what's happening. And then I'm here home, and then I'm just in my own space, and all of a sudden, in the name of Jesus pops up in my consciousness, and I'm like, and I start containing it, and I'm like, no. I turn on Chief's music, I read the book a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, got it out. Because it's weird how it just randomly just comes up, and then it's like, well, for me, my experience is like I would hear it as if I was saying it when I was younger. So it's like, is that me, or is it because I heard it? And then it's like, no, I know it's not me. And then it's like, I start containing it, but the containment works for me.
Good. Were you going to say something, Jay?
I was just going to say kind of the same thing. A group text started with like some of the people that I taught in Colombia with. So I haven't seen them for quite a few years. And then I just like read a little bit of it and like, oh, we shall do a video call or whatever. I was like, okay. And then, but then like a little bit later, I'm like, they're talking to me in my head, and I'm like, no, that is not them. So I like start to contain it all, and then I kind of forget about them, but I'm like, whoa, okay, I see how that all tried to happen and feeding on me. Yeah.
Attachments they're maniacal little bastards, but they like to test. They like to test things. They're like, it's almost like, for example, testing to see if a program is running, like on a computer. Like, okay, I need like Siri. Are you working right now? You know, are you still functioning? So they're like, they'll pop something in your head, like, yeah, in the name of Jesus. Like, for example, you see like a scary movie, and something scares you, and then the phrase "in the name of Jesus" pops in your head, and then they're testing to see whether you still agree with the program or you don't. And when you start containing them, you don't just you're containing who said it. That's when they don't always want to do that to you, when it could mean their deletion.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get less and less of that scenario, or sometimes I'm just chilling, having a good time, drinking some ginger brew or something, and all of a sudden I hear like a church song, like Saving Grace or something, and I'm just like, no, you don't.
I'll start whistling sometimes too, like just random. I'm like, how did you go from that to there?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the snowball effect. Nara and I were talking about that. Like, something will pop into your head that reminds you, let's say, of your childhood, and then it goes to something else that's dense. It goes to something else that's dense. Like, it's just, and it's like how did I...
thing, like,
and how did I end up here, even? Like, it, like, can but I have less, I don't really have that. I don't notice it as much as in the past, you know, where they just take me on a ride. When the ride starts, it's like, no, you're gone, you know, like.
Good job. Good job. Yeah. So
like I always tell the thought that like, I'll be like, shut up, that's not you. And then it's like, I'll make my voice in my head louder so it knows that like I'm aware that that's not me. And then I start like the containment, because at first my reaction is like nope.
Good for you. Yeah. For example, when they try to take you on a ride, the sooner you get off, the better.
Yes, right.
Or you know, like when they're taking you on a ride, they'll take you to the first memory, correct? So then they'll try to take you to the second one. Once they take you to the second one, you contain the first one. Then they take you to the second one, you contain the second one. Take you to the third one, you contain the third one. Because literally they're doing your job for you in some cases.
It's like those fragments you were talking about that come from like each thought or like each experience.
Yeah.
Like they'll play like in different memories and stuff. Like that'll trigger other thoughts.
Right. And it all takes practice, because containment is a lifestyle. Containment barriers is a lifestyle. So to get to the point where you feel confident that you can contain these memories as you're being taken on this snowball, it takes time to build up the strength to contain like that. So that's why you practice on the cat, you practice on your neighbor, you practice on everybody, so that you can get to the point where no one can take you on a snowball adventure when you don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm to the point now, like if my phone rings, like it's weird. Like I feel like certain people call me and I'll hear like everyone that's attached to them, and it's like, I just hear that, and then I'm like, I'm not answering that. Nope, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And it's like just something with the phone now, like being on the phone or FaceTiming, like especially like, you know, with the quarantine and stuff like that, I'm thoroughly enjoying being by myself and in my space. So it's like all my friends are like, we can go to Nelly to get some energy. No. It's okay. You can't call me. You can text me. I can't guarantee I'm gonna reply to you, but I'm on my terms and my time here. And I love it. Like it's just having that type of control over what you allow yourself to be open to, because it's so like a natural reflex for when your phone rings to just answer it. Yeah. Like, especially if you see a familiar name, like a family member or a friend or something like that. And it's like, for some reason, people are calling me with all these problems. I'm like, how do you have problems right now? You're home by yourself. Like, get out of your head. It's not my lesson. I'm at peace. I gotta go.
Yes, good. That's good. You're not allowing them to feed on you. It's almost
but like it's weird how now I could, before I even just, if the name pops up, I could hear the attachments, and I'm like, I don't know who I'm gonna get when I answer the phone, so I'm just not.
That's good. Yeah. Sometimes you'll get like where not just one person is calling you or texting you. You've got like 20 people texting you at once, and that's definitely where like I definitely feel this pressure from whatever's still inside of me, trying to be like, oh, you need to answer everyone. Oh, they're waiting for you. You don't make them wait. Don't make them wait. And it gets kind of loud. So I have to like literally force my hand and take that phone and put it down and start containing, and then contain the pressure that I feel that I have to like live up to not letting people wait. When in the past, when we didn't have cell phones, everybody had to wait.
I just had that conversation. Like, remember the days we had to wait till your friend got home, and you'll call, their mom answers, and they're like, is such and such home? No, they're not home yet. And it's like the days were longer. Now it's just too much, what is it called? Like instant gratification of like the being so easily available. And it's like, if they don't text you, they see you on social media. It's like, oh my gosh, all this control. It's just a phone.
Yes, it's crazy. Technology is definitely a tool of density, but you can use it like we're using it now for something positive.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I did think of something that I thought it was kind of cool after a session with Chief, like that any of my like MCs or anything else, it was like their voices were in a well. Like, so it's like they were trying to yell up to me, but I was like, I don't have time for you. It was like, sometimes they're here, but then it was like, they were so small and their voices were different. And I was like, you're down there. I don't really care. I don't have to listen to you. So that was cool when that happened.
Yeah, it's true. After a lot of sessions, the voices seemed far away and seemed like it's like for example, before it was like they were screaming in your ear like 1 inch away.
Yes, right,
But now
right.
it's like they're way on the other side of the street and like past that house, and it's like, hey, and I'm just like, huh? I think someone's trying to talk. I'm ignoring it.
I totally understand that.
Yeah, but and it takes time. I also had to come to the point where I was like, I'm going to accept that there are going to be times when I didn't behave as I wanted to, but to understand that I'm in a realm that's created for consciousness to feel like they made a mistake instead of feeling like I'm learning, I'm going forward, I'm changing. They feel like I made a mistake and there's nothing I can ever do to resolve that. There's nothing I can ever do to make up for that. That's what I felt like from my religious background. They make you think like you sinned and you can never atone for your sins, and that sin will follow you for eternity.
Right.
I was like, oh. So
Like
when
looking at it in a logical sense is like, what? I gotta be that scared of that? What?
It's horrible.
Like I remember the first time when I was, I guess Chief was helping me understand that part of like my mirror consciousness, like the messing up, because it was a few times where he corrected me on a few things, and I took it so like, oh man, I really disappointed like a parent figure or something like that, just because I look at him like that, and then it's just like, was that a trick? And then it's like, was it tricking me to understand what mirror consciousness is? And I'm like, I know I'm learning and I know I'm a student, so I'm gonna mess up. So it's like I started to make sense of it. And so the next time he corrected me on something, I was just like, thank you for like, helping me understand it versus I suck or whatever. It is just like, I get it.
Good. Yeah. That's so good. You didn't allow them to feed on you like you made a mistake and that you'll never change from it. You just felt like, you know what? Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for keeping me on the path. Thank you for showing me where north is or where, so I can get out of this freaking dense forest.
And it's like what you were saying earlier, like just shifting my perspective and seeing it from the aspect of, I am a student. So I'm like, it's okay to be, to fall off or like not understand something or, mess up or whatever. But it's like, it's all a part of, for me, was understanding that it's all a part of my journey as far as with Chief when it came to that. So it's like, why would I? So it's like, make it make sense,
Yeah, totally. For example, I thought I got rid of the density that came from who was considered my father in this drama we call life or whatever. The person that is playing the role as father, that person, when he died, I began to try to get rid of his energy in my own energy. And I thought I did. And there was a part of me that didn't want to face that there was still some of him in me, his energy in me, that I was holding on to. Like, for example, some of the good times that I had with this person, I didn't want to let them go because everyone else in my family didn't treat me very well. But this person called my father, he kind of did. So I was holding on to like memories of this person. And I began to let it go, but there were some key things that I didn't want to let go. Like, for example, when I would be with what I call them father unit. When I would be with the father unit, we would have this relationship where like we would challenge each other, to a debate. Like, I feel like this and you feel like that, and hash it out, that kind of thing. And I thought it was okay because it was like a normal behavior in this pimple on the ass of the universe. And so I was like, I had to realize Chief is my teacher. He's not. Density was trying to make me see Chief in this way that I skewed in the way of this dense person called father unit. When his advice is the teacher. And he said, you know what? I don't want you to have no thoughts, but my word needs to be the last say, needs to be the final say. And that will help you get to where you want to go. You want to be balanced, right? You want to go home, don't you? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, and you need to face that you still have some of your father unit in you. That whole debate thing is dense. It's not necessary. And so I still I'm still leaching out every remnants of the father unit in me. And I had to face like, okay, there might be some mentalities that I'm still holding on to that have to do with relatives. Like, for example, fear, being worried. Like a lot of mothers, they are full of worry, and they teach their daughters worry. And I didn't want to face that I had worry inside of me. And
yeah,
sometimes
my
I'd be
mom was
like,
the queen of that.
your mom was the queen of worry.
I'm like the most irrelevant thing to worry about. That was her. And she was so convincing about it too.
Yeah.
It's like, you need to fear this. And it's like, why?
Yeah, why? And you know, like when you hear other people, sometimes they'll try to reinforce that program of worry because someone reinforced it, like the mother unit reinforced it in your life, worry, right? So then every person you go to, like maybe some teachers at school or maybe some people at your work, they'll reinforce that worry, just trying to keep it in your energy. And I had to face the fact that I still wasn't entertaining that. Like, worried that someone's going to tox my bathroom during sessions and it's going to tox me. You know? Like, you know? But I realized, like, no, so what? Even if something happens and I get a little tox, am I going to stop? No, I'm going to keep going forward. Keep looking where north is. Keep focusing on my journey.
Yeah.
Like even what you just said, like how you took it back to like, you know, school and things like that. Like even something as simple as like feeling like we always have to ask permission to want to do something comes from like being with the parental units and then going to school and having to ask our teachers for permission to even like use the bathroom or speak. And then it's like even as women, that trickles down into like, you know, relationships with a man and a woman, how the man feels like woman needs to hold her, like know her place and like only speak when she's spoken to and things like that. And it's like it debilitates your own, I guess, self-esteem in a sense over time, because then you go back to that, well, like I'm taught to obey or this or ask permission. It's like just following the program of like everything you were saying, like how it really does start from the minute we get here.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something, Miss J?
I was just, it was kind of tied to the mother thing. Like, yeah, like I thought this state of worry was like the norm in my life until in my 20s. So like when I was around my mom and she's so like nervous, that was like normal to me. Like that's what people are like. And then there was a point where I completely shifted, and then I was like, this feels really unnatural. Like I couldn't even be around her for a while because I was like, you're too worried. Like, so it was so interesting to see that shift of it being so normal to me and then seeing like, oh no, this isn't normal behavior.
Right. So true. I definitely, when it comes to fear, it's like the basis of like almost every program that you can find. Like for example, like when Nelly said that for some male programming, well, not male programming, just programming in general, that you only speak when you're spoken to and you feel suppressed. And so that's when sometimes density can use your MCs extensively, because you begin to there's might be an MC like, I need to stand up for myself. I need to, I need to be strong. I need to not allow this to happen. But then the defensiveness can sometimes get in the way of learning, in my case. So I've had experiences like with some pastors in the church, in the cult that I used to be in, who had that kind of perspective that women should only speak when they're spoken to. But then when it came to Chief, and when he's trying to teach me something that's actually freaking useful, those MCs would start talking like, oh, he's trying to suppress you. But when he's trying to teach me something that's going to free me from their clutches, from their grasp, from their root system inside of me. And I had to realize, okay, yes, I went through that experience. I need to contain all those memories of when people said a woman should only speak when they're spoken to. Get rid of that so I can take this information Chief's trying to give me and accept it better, because that stuff is trying to cloud my head.
Yeah.
And make it make it confused in a way. And sometimes I know it's easy to like suppress the feeling, like, okay, I know that's not right, so I'm just gonna suppress it because obviously Chief's trying to give me some good advice, instead of actually just facing it and containing it and seeing that it's trying to interject poison into this good advice. Yeah.
One way too that I started like to separate myself from like the back-to-back MCs, like the repetitive is like where to me I was like, okay, well, is this the MC or is this the MC? It's kind of like if I had a bag of rice and I felt like I was trying to go through every grain asking myself if this was an MC. So it's like how you said, like the shifting of perspective. I was like, man, the whole bag is going in the vortex because it's not mine. And if it's meant to be mine, it'll find me. I don't have to pick through every little thing. I'm like, I'm going to sit there and drive myself crazy and ask myself, is this part of the program? No, everything is. And it's just like, it made my understanding of it so much lighter, where it's like, okay, so it's like now when I do encounter an MC, I'm like, I can see it right away versus like, where is it? You know?
So good. You know, I love your explanation with the bag of rice and like trying to figure out which one is which. Yeah. You know, a lot of times when people first come to have sessions, we cannot tell them that most everything they know needs to be dumped.
Right.
Because that would really make them discouraged. So
my whole thing was just understanding that people that were already in my life could be mirror consciousness versus the new people that I was encountering. And it was like, no, it's both, you know, and it's just like, but that's my family. That's this person. No, they were there for a reason. It's like, okay, everybody's going to okay, got it.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, I would say like in the beginning, like, but not, it didn't take me. In the beginning, it was sometimes hard to contain people that I loved or family. And then because obviously NSTHA was like, no, don't do that. But now it's like, anyway, like whoever it is, it's just saying, hey, you keep your stuff over there. And, you know, I'm just working on this stuff and right here. And, you know, that's nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to like do me, you know?
Exactly. You're literally quarantining their stuff to themselves. You know, it's
exactly.
It's like you and all your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when Chief said that instead of trying to dig through the bag of rice and figuring out what is, what isn't, just seeing that density vibrates below the line of demarcation. So whether it's an attachment, whether it's an MC, don't worry about it. If it makes you feel, if it drains your energy, makes you feel low, you can 9 times out of 10, it's something that is dense. So just chuck it.
Yep.
But it takes time. So that's why also Chief doesn't tell them, you know what, most everything in your life needs to go. He just says, okay, this should go now. This should go now. This should go now. And he's very patient. So step by step. So it's not like, oh, I need to throw everything away right away. Because that was my issue. Like I wanted to dump everything right now. And I literally almost drove myself insane. If it wasn't for sessions with Chief, I would be nuts because I was like, this all has to go today.
And one thing I noticed myself doing before too was trying to pick apart the pieces out of people just to like find a reason to keep them around. And it's like, it was more exhausting to do that. And it's like, okay, you just, no.
Because because also when you're trying to pick them apart, you're looking into their energy and you're experiencing their density. You're opening yourself up to their density.
Yeah, it was
For example,
exhausting when I used to do that.
yeah, exhausting because you can get fed on that way as well, because you're literally you're looking into their mindset, and it's like you're opening the door and be like, you're looking into their stuff.
It was around the time when you taught me about the feeding frenzy. Remember the image you drew?
Oh yes, yes.
Like it was around that time that was happening, where it was like, why am I so exhausted? I'm trying to be so mindful of like the people around me. And then I was like, feeding frenzy, got it.
Yes, it's a feeding frenzy because, for example, people think that, oh, I'm just looking through famous people's Facebook or famous people's Instagram. No big deal. I'm not talking to them, but really you're looking into their life. So literally you're opening your door and looking, and their shit can come through, and which makes you feel like poo as well. And also density will try to glamorize their life like it's so good, it's so great, when they've got so many voices that they can't stand to be in their own skin.
It's funny you said the thing about voices, because I started like on Instagram, when I watch things, like just randomly go on there, like if a video plays, I have it to play on mute, or if I wanted to play loud, I have to actually tap it, because I started hearing, I could hear it without it's kind of like I could hear the attachments just by having the thing on mute. So it's like when I would add their voices too, it was like even more intense. So now it's just like, okay, I get it. I don't even want it.
I did that too, actually, with movies. Sometimes like I would be like, oh, I want to watch a movie, but I feel like this is gonna be really dense. I don't know if I really should be doing this. So I was like, if I do, I think I'm gonna watch it on mute just to see what's going on. And if I can't stand it anymore, I'm just gonna get out.
Like less than 5 minutes in, off.
Yeah, like the movie The Joker, the newest one, with I forget which actor, but it's like there's a lot of movies that just highlight density, like how dense can it be, and there's like this program that wants you to be like, isn't it curious about how crazy people can be? Can be, and it's like, no, I don't want to open myself up to that kind of density. I mean, why am I even curious?
I saw it at the theater, and I was like this the whole time. I was like, why am I here? And then the crazy part is that people started saying like, oh, I understand him now, and I'm like, what are you saying? What are you saying?
Oh man, when I used to go to, go ahead, Miss J.
Oh, I was just thinking about how, now let's see if it might come back. I lost it now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. No, okay.
Sometimes when I go to the movie theaters, it's strange because I could not sit back. I could not put my head against that chair. It was like I could feel. It's like a lot of density. Of course, they target every part of your body, but really intensely your head. And I felt like if I had my back to the chair, I felt uncomfortable. But the worst thing was to put my head against the movie theater chair. It was like I could sense all the like chaos and fear
from
and
like the other person,
of the person who was sitting, the people, because those chairs have absorbed the density of those who sit in it and watch like scary movies or romance movies. Every jealousy, everything is in those things. And I realized when I realized that you have to contain what you sit on, what you lay on. And I was like, okay, this is why I feel so weird at movie theaters. I'm just gonna watch.
I used to feel that on airplanes, and then I just started programming myself before I met Chief to just instantly go to sleep so I wouldn't overthink it. But now I like, instead of just containing the chair, I'm like, I contain the whole plane, everybody in there individually. I'm like, I need to go to sleep. I don't need to see this. But I understand what you mean by like the energy of the chair, like just there.
Right. And people will try to make you feel like you're like weird or silly to think like, oh, how could you think there's like this things in the chair? I'm like, now, why can they not be? I mean, who said they can? You know?
Yes.
But definitely things can absorb energy. But I definitely, I've gotten more used to like containing what I sit on. So sometimes I stand a lot because it's like I do want to contain everything, but you know, I can stand a little longer. I don't have to sit on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when I'm at work, I work at a tattoo shop, and there's like 7 or 8 of us, and we're like, if you were to put a bunch of siblings in a house, and it's like, you know which sibling you can go and grab their stuff and they won't say nothing. You know which one stuff not to mess with. But for the most part, like our chairs that we use and like different types of furniture, like we all use it. So in my mind, instead of like individually going like, okay, I'm gonna contain this, I envision like a paintbrush every time I walk into the shop, and I'm like, contain everything here, like, and I just see the paintbrush, like everything that my mind touches, which is the brush, is contained, and it's like, it's just more like a habit now that I've created, so I won't forget to do it at work.
Yeah, I definitely feel like containment has to be second nature, really. Like with the heavy duty Pac-Man, I do that for everything. And when Chief was talking about focusing on doing layer by layer, that's I've noticed, like, because I've seen a lot of sessions, and so when people first start, so there is the effectiveness of your containment, and then the durability of your containment. So when you contain, he'll muscle test. Okay, was it effective? Did they actually contain it? Yes, they did, but it will only last 15 minutes. So okay, then he'll say, okay, do another layer of containment. Okay, yes, they did a containment, but it will now only last 3 hours. So the goal is at least 24 hours. So he'll muscle test them to where they've have enough layers. So depending on the person. So for some people it was 3 layers was 24 hours. For some people it was 6 layers was 10 hours. You know, it just depends on the
See, during
person.
my sessions, I would only do it before and after. So I'm gonna try that next time now.
So
you, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, it is interesting because, like, I do it throughout the day, but I do like heavy duty like containment at night and in the morning. And in the morning, my MCs, like, sometimes I stay in bed for a long time. I'm like, I'm not getting out of bed until I do this. Like, but so like some days I'll do it like right away. Sometimes it'll be an hour later, but I'm like, I'm not leaving my room until it's done. So it's always interesting, like sometimes how long it takes me.
Yeah. It just depends on like kind of what's going on in your energy and how much the density is trying to put up a fight. You know, some days they're just like, I'm tired. Some days they're just like, no, we're gonna get you. You know, for example, it would be sometimes like during certain sessions, there'd be certain breakthroughs that Chief would help me to see and get through, like certain walls that I had up. Like, for example, the wall I was telling you that I didn't realize that I still had the father unit energy in mine, and I had to face that. That wall came down. And then it was like the density was like, okay, now you just got that wall down. You don't need any more walls broken down. So just you know,
like, we're good
hold on. Yeah, we're good right here. Because she would be like, okay, I see another wall. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the next one. And you know, it's like I'm allowing the MC to talk with my mouth. And I'm like, how dare you use my mouth? You know? Yeah. But yeah, I definitely just use containment barriers in that case because it's definitely I have to say it's a very fun experience just to watch different people, because some people, they'll try to rate themselves compared to other people. Like, oh, I can do a containment with just 1 containment, or I can do, it takes me 6 containments. I'm very sad. You know, like, no, it's like you are where you are in your journey, and you can be proud that you're just going forward, or confident, really, because proud is a program too. But you can be confident that how many containment it takes for you to have the durability that you need is good enough. And as you go, it'll get easier and easier.
Like during this whole thing, my containment has been mostly focused on my phone, because I noticed that as soon as like the pandemic thing started and I had to be home, I'm like, okay, I just would not let go of the phone. Like my phone was literally stuck to my hand, and I was like paying attention to myself, like almost if I was watching myself from a different perspective. And I'm like, let the phone go, and I'm eating food. I'm like, put it down. I'm in the bathroom, put it down. It's like I would literally not go to the bathroom without my phone. And then the more I contained it, it was like, okay, now I'm gonna be off social media, or I'm gonna turn my phone off for like a week. And then now, when I go to sleep, I have it near my bed because I play Chief's music, but I put it on airplane mode, no Wi-Fi. Because I started realizing that even if I would wake up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, I would like start grabbing, and it's like, what are you doing? And it's like, even doing that, like I would sleep, and if I had it on Wi-Fi or not on airplane mode, I would feel like there was something in my room. So I would do like the karate thing, and I'm like, vortex of, no return. And it would go away. But then it's like, is it because of my phone? And then I would put it on airplane mode, and then I would be able to just go away. So now when I go into my room, before I even walk in there, I have it on airplane mode, because I feel like if I don't, I'm bringing something in there with me attached to my phone. So it's just like the repetitive of like, okay, any way I can contain it, you're not going to trick me, because I know you're going to try to do it another way. I'm just like, no.
Yeah, definitely. I used to like to play video games, and it was a struggle at first to let that go completely, because it was what I was talking about, old tools that I used to comfort myself. So it was like I had relatives that were driving me crazy, so I'll just play these video games. Or like my life is super stressful, so I'll play these video games. And it was like I was feeding whatever was in those video games. I was feeding whatever MCs or whatever that had to do with like comforting myself. And it took some time to just like really let that go, and to feel like, okay, the real issue is that I don't feel comfortable. I feel like I need something to relieve stress that isn't a part of my energy. It's like I needed this external thing to solve my internal problem.
Right.
And it's like everything that will solve it is on the inside. It's like from the inside out.
It's definitely, I feel like there are things that are in me that I have enough energy, but I need guidance that's from Chief. Like that's where the external is, but the internal, I feel like my steadfastness is a tool that I feel I respect about myself, is my ability to continue no matter what. Continue no matter if I fell on my face or I messed up or I said something I shouldn't have said. I'm just gonna continue, and I won't. And I also, my ability to take correction from Chief. I feel like that is another thing that I can respect myself for, because that has helped me get through so much stuff. And I kind of laugh at Density. Is like, you're not gonna get me. I don't care if you think I'm a weak link. I'm gonna keep going.
Like, I feel like it takes a level of discipline within yourself to want it for yourself. And it comes to a place where it's like, you have to realize you're doing it for your own journey, your own consciousness, whereas, we've been programmed to do everything for other people. So it's like the one thing that I feel like holds me accountable is that this is literally changing my experience that I've already experienced. And it's like, if there's something else I can experience that's a lot better than what I'm signing up for it. I'm here. I've experienced it. I haven't had a bad day since. And it's like, why would I give it up? So it's like, that's for me what even more so now allows me to like, okay, I got to drop it. Got it. Versus like trying to like, pick through what I want to keep and not.
Yeah.
But it's like the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. Like, being under Chief's guidance has been like,
I know.
Like this moment right here, I feel like makes me feel like real life. because I feel like I know you're real because you're on your journey. I know you guys are real because you guys are on your journey. It's like everybody else is like, they're still in the program. It's sad.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they teach you to like, yeah, go have a pizza, treat yourself, you know, that phrase, treat yourself.
Yeah.
When really treating yourself would be doing some containment barriers in the morning, like Miss J. That's treating yourself because you're doing the best you can for yourself.
Yeah.
And that pizza is gonna bite you in
And
the
it's like
butt.
everything that raises your vibration and raises your energy above that, you know, above density is like, I'm all for it. So like when people call me and they're like giving me these problems, I'm like, okay, it's noon and you're feeling this heavy. What has been on have you been feeding the negativity or have you been more positive? Like, have you even said thank you for one thing today? And they're like, no. I'm like, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Or on this journey, sometimes it's like, I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm going. Like, there's no, like, I'm moving forward. But once in a while, it's so interesting how density will be like, but don't you, like, is this really working? Or, oh, this or that. And I'm like, no, you're going in the vortex. Like, I'm not listening to you. Like, I know. Yes, it is. Like, I do not miss anything from, you know, before, you know, meeting Chief and, like, actually making, like, progress forward. Yeah.
Yes. And I can totally see that in all of you, just the way that you changed from the first day that you had your sessions. And those are definitely something you can be confident and have respect and consideration for yourself because you come a long way. And, you know, most people are not on the journey, and that's something you can also respect yourself for. I definitely, I'm so glad that there are those who value what is actually really changing their lives, changing my life. But thank you guys for coming on the forum today, though. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I have a question.
Okay, Nora.
About being balanced, you know, because some people say being balanced is the program. Is it also what is it like to be balanced to start?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so, all right, yes, there's a lot of, so you can know that density is all about misdirection, like a magician. They'll put something in your face and say that this is what to focus on, but really they're doing something behind their back. So if they tell you that balance is like anything that has to do with strictly doing, like for example, perfection. Sometimes people think perfection is balance, but that's very, perfection is rigid. It doesn't have room for growth. Balance is something that flows like a wave. When it meets the situation with the intensity that needs to happen. Chief always tells me, because I used to tell Chief that whenever I find a situation that I don't like for example, I would kill a fly with a sledgehammer. And I felt good about it because I thought this MC was me. And because I wouldn't let it go, I had it for quite a while. And when someone would do something to me, I wanted to take a sledgehammer to them because it was like kill a fly with a sledgehammer. But Chief says, when density throws something at you at 100 degrees, you just raise it up one more, 101. Or you raise it up to where it will balance the situation. So for example, if someone is trying to deal with you in a very negative way, they're trying to trigger you, like maybe they're making fun of you or they're like poking fun about something, an insecurity that you have. They're trying to push your buttons. So instead of like just retaliating at them and like they're calling you stupid, it's not balanced to call them stupid because the end result is both of you feel bad and both of you feed density. So the balanced response would be, okay, either silence can be good, you know, silence can speak louder than words, or you look past that person that's calling you stupid and you see the attachment that's messing with you and you contain it and throw it in the vortex of no return. You contain them. And then you say you can either change the direction of the flow. So they're trying to hit you, but then you change the conversation wholly entirely and you take it a whole direction that you want it to go in. So you're going to change that flow. That's a balanced, that's the best answer I can give you for a balanced response to that kind of behavior. So the attachment did not feed on you. You deleted it or you contained it. And you feel more confident about your ability to change the situation and take control of your universe, yourself. I hope that's helpful because Chief can really give you a better answer, but that's the best that I can do.
I have an example of something that happened to me recently that can kind of add to what you were saying.
Great.
There was a young lady who I was hanging out with, and I understood in the beginning why she was a mirror consciousness, but I wasn't feeding it. I was just trying to understand my process with that particular type of mirror consciousness because it was some bizarre stuff that happened. And after my last session with Chief, I was like, okay, Spirit Guide, show me now the other side of the mirror consciousness that I haven't been seeing. Like you were saying, you know, the behind the scene thing. And randomly one day she calls me and she tells me that she was mad at me over something that I said probably 2 or 3 months ago. And it was something that I remember my ex used to do that would trigger me because it would trigger, you know, the whole thing with my mom not feeling like I did something right. And I was just like, and we were on FaceTime and she was like, you know, but, you know, I still think like you're cool, whatever, whatever. And I was just like, oh, hold on, I gotta go. I forgot something in my car. I haven't talked to her since. I was like, it was that easy. I was like, I understood that was, you know, me seeing that side that, you know, I couldn't see just because it was like all wrapped all pretty in the beginning, like in the forefront. But it's like understanding that there's that other side of the mirror consciousness that we don't necessarily see. But it's like seeing through it is like, oh, I get it now. It's like that part where it's like, it just connects to everything down the line that you've been through, like those fragments that you were talking about.
Yes.
Like all that in that moment for me was like, ding, 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 ding. I was like, oh, I get it.
So, for example, the concept of balance, the real kind, the kind that Chief can teach you about, is you'll understand it more the more sessions that you have because the visual will get clearer. It's almost like you're trying to look at a very beautiful garden, but you're looking at it through like smoked glass. And it's really hard to see, and you can kind of see like the little trees are green or something, but the more and more you get clear, it'll come into view and it'll feel natural. It's almost like no matter what happens, when you have a certain balance, you can't be shaken. Like no matter what someone does to you, what they say to you, what happens to you. Like Miss J got hit by a bike, like a near, like kind of like near hit, but she wasn't like all down in the dumps or like super worried or super fearful because she's getting more clarity as to what is balance, how to keep zero emotion in her interjecting itself into her life. That's a good example of just finding that flow where you can just stay chill or where you can meet the situation with the intensity that needs to be and not to where it takes you out of whack. Like some people,
like
when they get angry,
things to trigger you in the wrong way.
Right. So for example, some people, they can't hold a job because they just get so mad so instantly that they just flame everyone, their boss and everything, and then they're out of work again. and that's just an example of someone that really has no wherewithal as to what's actually happening in their energy. I hope that's okay. But if you ask Chief, he'll give you a better answer.
You explained it pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just combined everything that he taught me, so I feel like it should be good, because I think that there was like an MC in me that wanted to make me feel like I know enough, but not realizing how much damage can happen to you when you've lived in the pimple of the ass of the universe for so long. Like if density has been around for thousands and thousands of years, I had to realize, like, okay, I could be really fucked up, you know. And Chief has only had this one expression in density, so I said to myself, I need to accept that there are some things that I really have to go through to get to where I want to go. Yeah, but it was hard. It was hard because density will try to make you, like, for example, I come from the concept of like academic smarts, school smarts. So sometimes when Chief would try to correct me, there would be this feeling like, I know, I studied a lot. I read your whole book and I know things. And it's like, you don't know stuff just because you know it from a book. He's actually lived it. He's lived it, learned it, and he's 60-something years old. You're like, you know, and not only that, think about how old his consciousness is. Just take his correction and move forward. And I'm like, all right. It's like my inner argument. But yeah, I do know that I've had to become way more patient. Like in the beginning, if I made a mistake, I'd be sad about it like for a long time. And I had to track it back to a past memory. When I was in the church, if I made a mistake, I felt like I sinned and I had to be sorry for like a certain amount of time for God to forgive me. And I didn't realize how much that stain had followed me around even into Neo Shamanism, to where whenever I felt like I did something that Chief had to correct me, I felt like, oh, I need to be sorry. I need to be down on myself for like a certain amount of time.
When you were in the church, and you would feel that sorry feeling, would you feel like, in a sense, like you were forcing yourself to feel that type of energy, like you were forcing yourself to like lower yourself to that type of density to make it seem like you're connecting with the religion?
Sometimes, but see, I was born into the church.
Oh,
so
okay.
it was like since I was 0 years old.
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
Also in the church, they have this thing in the Bible that was like talking about like true sorrowfulness leads to salvation, you know. So in order to be enlightened or whatever, you need to be sorry about what you did. And that type of programming was really poisonous to my consciousness, and I didn't realize how much it fed the density. They were just eating me alive every time I would make a mistake. But instead of like making it, you know, it's like, it's as if I'm walking on the road, and when I make a mistake, I dig a hole and stay in it for a few days. But instead, I shouldn't dig a hole. I should just be like, okay, I tripped. I get it back up and keep walking instead of digging a hole.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. Like when I would make a mistake, like I would at least worry about it and feel bad for like at least 24 hours. It would just like be on repeat in the past. It was like torturous. But luckily like that, doesn't happen anymore. But yeah.
When it came to church stuff, I felt like I would force myself to embody that, because for whatever reason I never like believed in what they were telling me in the church. Like I went from Catholic where I had to like talk to a priest and like be like, forgive me for this, forgive me for that, and then I go to another religion and it's like, well, where's the guy that I have to talk to? Oh, I gotta talk to the guy in my head. Okay, got it. So it's like, so sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I do feel bad. And it's like that heaviness of like,
heavy.
Forcing myself to feel things that I didn't necessarily agree with was something also that was a mirror consciousness for me that came from religion and my mom and like, you know, all that crap.
Yeah. There's a lot of people struggle with also their concept. So one of the questions I ask, which I'll ask you guys too, is like, if you could share with me your concept of who supreme consciousness is, and then I'll finish what I was gonna say after that, if you don't mind. If it's too weird a question, then just let me know and I'll just continue.
I've recently kind of felt like I'm more so understanding what like supreme consciousness is, and I feel like if I had to like put it into words, it's like the absolute conscious version of you expressing itself in the human form. Like you kind of like connect, like that click to like your source of like energy. Whereas like it's what you feed off of the, like where you can get your, how can I explain it? I feel like it's kind of when you become more than human and you understand and you fully embody that, because you're connected and you understand like the universe is within you as it is on the outside if you see past the matrix. Like if I could void the matrix, I know that I could connect through everything like Mother Earth and things like that. And I feel like even a tree has its own consciousness. So it's like supreme consciousness, like everything within everything, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Anyone else?
I mean, I guess I see like everything's energy. So I like see supreme consciousness as like like the original energy or what, like, and then some of like universal consciousness has like been created from it. And I guess that's how I look at it.
Okay, great. And anyone else, or would you like me to continue?
I have a painting that I've been working on that kind of explains what I was trying to explain, but I want to show it at the end so that we can get everything out first.
Great. Okay, so this is a great question if you'd like to ask Chief as well, because it's a very intense question.
Yes. Right.
It's something that he's much more familiar with. But from what I understood is that I brought this up because of my experience in the church. It poisoned my concept of supreme consciousness. I thought of supreme consciousness as like an angry God, a wrathful God, a God that had expectations, a God that expected me to behave in a certain way, or would punishment because of the church, because of that type of poison. I couldn't even see supreme consciousness properly. But as I had a dream once. I know some people think it's weird, my devotion to Chief, but they don't understand my background and what I came from in the cult and how intense it was and how much I'm just so happy these days. But I had a dream once.
Right.
Yes.
I totally get that.
Thank you. I had a dream once, and I was like, I saw what looked like this huge sun, and it had rays that came out and out and out, and just the rays continued. They just never stopped. The rays of this looked like the sun. And I was like, if this is supreme consciousness, I really want to get to know supreme consciousness. And I just had this like intense desire, and I kept thinking that. And then this voice said, if you want to get to know supreme consciousness, get to know the Chief. Get to know what he thinks of supreme consciousness, then you will know. And I woke up and I was like, oh shit, that was intense. So I went and asked Chief, and I was like, what's supreme consciousness? Because I see it through the eyes of the church, through the eyes of poison. I see it as a God who expects me to do everything. When really it's not. But I'm sure that when you ask Chief, he'll give you an answer that suits your energy and where you are. But for me, what he said was to see it as, just like Miss J said, the intense first source, and where that energy supported firstborn, and then secondborn, and then thirdborn, and fourthborn, and so on and so forth. But the energy from supreme consciousness flows out to all consciousness that are connected to it. And then the experiences that each of these consciousness flows back to supreme consciousness. So there's this flow back and forth with the energy of expressing itself freely, expressing itself in balance. The expression is not limited or restricted as long as it's in balance. And that's why learning about, from Chief what balance is a way for you to get home to supreme consciousness, to where you can express yourself freely. Right now, your expression is restricted because of density, but the more and more clear you are, your expression will just blossom open like a flower and just keep going. Like when I saw the vision of Supreme Consciousness, how the rays of the light just never ended, just boom, 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 just layer after layer of it. And I was totally amazed by just the energy of feeling that, and how it feels peaceful, and how it feels balanced, and how it feels empowering and strengthening. Like I noticed that from many sessions with people. They say that what Chief tells them makes them feel strong, makes them feel like they can face situations, and makes them feel like they can change their whole environment to where it's more balanced, where it's more peaceful, where they feel stronger, where they feel more confident, and they have more respect and consideration for themselves. I feel like Supreme Consciousness is the embodiment of respect and consideration for consciousness and balance. And that, to me, gives me this intense strength within myself. That's how I describe it for me. I hope that's okay. But
no, yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if you ask Chief, he'll give you something that you can handle. Like for example, if you give something that's too concentrated to someone, they need to have something that fits their strength. So as you get clearer and clearer, it will begin to grow. Like Chief's daughter, when she was teaching me, she said, "Don't worry about trying to remember everything that I ever tell you. Understand and feel comfort that it's in there, that it will come out. Just accept what I tell you, and then let it come out when it needs to." And so sometimes when certain situations would happen, her voice would come in my head and remind me of what she said, or remind me of what Chief said. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that's where this piece goes, like a piece of my puzzle or something.
I do that with you and Chief all the time. I'm like, oh, that's a feeding frenzy. Nope.
That's cool.
Yeah, I definitely feel like too, I wanted in the beginning to like, oh, I want to know everything and be good at everything and da da da. And now I'm just like, be patient. Like when I, am able to do that, cool. Right now, just be where I'm at. Instead of that like idea of perfection. Like I should have all my gifts. Yeah.
It's totally like if you're, for example, we've had clients who are like into the new age kind of thing, and they're like, I want to control water, and you're gonna teach me how to control the water and the earth, and I'm like,
right.
Well, I don't even know how to do that stuff. What are you talking about? And I'm just like, okay, whatever.
And it's funny because there's so many movies that have that. So like when I would watch certain movies, it's like for me, I would always take it in as a different level of energy, or like part that like a level that you stepped into in your journey, like whatever. But people seriously like, yeah, I could change water and I could do this, and I'm like, what? You can't do that, like. Or like those other people that like they could float or levitate and stuff like that. I'm like, you mean jump? And they took a picture? Like it's just all like mumbo jumbo at the end of the day.
And usually it's not them that's doing it, it's their attachments. And then they're just taking the credit. It's like, for example, that person is just their avatar, and then the entity attachment inside of it is like the one doing the levitation or the one doing all those things. And that person is just a pawn. So what Chief is teaching you, it can eventually take you somewhere really expansive. But that's not, controlling consciousness is never a goal. Why would you want to control water or earth? That's a consciousness in itself. It's like Supreme Consciousness is about respect and consideration for all other consciousness. Like, for example, someone asked me a really good question. If you're in Neo Shamanism, what about eating animals? What about respect and consideration for animals? In the past when things were way more balanced, you would eat an animal if that animal would like to transition. You would show respect and consideration to this animal because it says, I would like to transition into another form. So I need to end this. I need to end this expression. Can you please help me with this? So, for example, in certain situations, like, for example, there was an experience during a session that had to do with coyote ancient consciousness. And this consciousness was talking about how animals would come to it and say, I would like to transition. And it was not about fiercely ripping it open and, you know, pain and torture and fear. It was about just ending the expression in peace. And even nations people, they would, like, for example, they would ask, please, is there any consciousness that would like to transition? And a deer would come out of the forest if that was what they wanted. And they would eat it if in respect, and they would also help that consciousness to transition. Please transition in peace. Thank you for allowing us to benefit from your avatar. Thank you for your expression. That kind of respect.
They do that in the movie Avatar too. The one part where he accidentally kills the animal, and she's like, "Wait, like you have to let it go in peace." That's
and a lot of times there'll be like some inkling of truth in some fantasy films, but it's all twisted. So a lot of times I try to like throw it away for the most part, but sometimes I'll ask like during a session the details of the complexity, because Palladian programming is to make everything simplified. You know, 1 + 1 is always 2. This kind of people, they're always bad. This kind of behavior always is like this, or density always attacks you like that, so that you can become predictable to where density can predict your moves. They like whenever you don't make life hard on them.
When will you say that shifted? Like how long ago, where we would do that with animals if we were gonna eat them?
Oh, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago.
Right, because I'm trying, like, I know how it's been since I've been here, like, in this form. So I'm like, I'm wondering how far.
Right. So that's why it's become quite strange, but I'm really looking forward to how things are really changing and seeing what happens in the future. I know, because, you know, honestly, like, for example, Cirrus B, consciousness Cirrus B, they don't have to eat. They eat if they want to. It's an expression. Right. It's not a mandatory, because you are powered by the energy of supreme consciousness. You don't have to physically eat. But because our vibration is low, our vibration is so low, our body needs physical sustenance. But with my opinion, I feel like if I keep following the compass, the advice that Chief gives me, I believe that I can make it and transition to where my energy becomes stronger and stronger, to where I don't have to, you know, it sounds crazy, but I believe it's a reality.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Before I met you guys, I would say when I thought I was meditating, I would hear voices like, stop eating meat. And then it was like, stop eating meat. So I cut back little by little, and I was still eating chicken. And like, at the time I was allergic to penicillin, because I don't claim it now. You taught me that. So I ate a piece of chicken, and like I had the worst penicillin outbreak, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna not keep ignoring this. Clearly it's for a reason. And then after meeting Chief, he was explaining, like, especially like the food and the meats in the States are like the worst, and I get it, and I understand the why, because like they're just, it's not really food. But I haven't eaten meat since 2017.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes I'll do seafood, like I'll do crab legs or like shrimp. But like even now, shrimp, I'm like having that same thing that I used to have. Like, so I'm like, all right, shrimp, you're gonna go next. I know it. But it's like I'll do it like once or twice a month, so it's not really a biggie. Yeah. But yeah, in the States, the food is worse here than anywhere.
Right. There's a lot of pesticides and things. Ugh. But you know, as your energy gets better, it's not like, I don't want to like go out there and challenge my energy by eating as many cheesecakes as I possibly can. But as I continue with this journey and taking advice, I believe that your energy becomes strong enough to where if somehow, you know, some cheese ended up in, or like, you know, some bit of shrimp ended up in your food, that your energy will be strong enough to take it. But it's definitely not necessary. Like,
now I haven't eaten dairy either. Like, I don't eat it like that. Like, if there's egg in an ingredient, you know, I contain it and then I have it. But like cheese instantly comes up, and I'm like, okay, my body got this down. Like, it'll be the smallest speck of cheese, and like the next day I'm just coughing it up, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I told a client once, I said, your body has more respect and consideration for you than anyone that you're looking for confirmation from, looking for approval from these other people. When your body has more respect and consideration, so why not show it respect and consideration as well? Like, for example, recently, sometimes I would have to throw up. And before I used to be like afraid of throwing up. Like, oh no, it's the worst thing. But now I just accept it and become calm about it because I realize my body is showing respect and consideration for me and it wants to purge out some density. So I just need to be calm and allow my body to do what it needs to do, what it wants to do. And it's really, really helped.
I noticed too, like the just flowing, like allowing my body to, like before I would resist it. And then like I would choke on whatever was trying to come up because I'd be like, no, I don't want to feel that. That's gross. And it's like now it's like, get out. It's like, just come out. And it makes it way easier when you try to like not to fight it anymore.
Yeah.
Because like that gag reflex to me, like with throw up and like spitting up used to get me. But now I just, it's got to go.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Like I would freak out when I start like throwing up in the past. And I mean, I haven't recently, but now I'd be like, whatever, it's coming out, you know, like a total different shift in like how I feel about it.
Yeah, it makes you feel so much more calm inside when you're just letting your body purge what it needs to. Like with the boils that were on my hands, when I stopped freaking out and realized that I was purging out the church stuff, I was like, oh, look, my hands are healing better. But it looks like it's been 2 hours now. It was really great to talk to you all, and I'm so happy. I hope that to see you next time.
Thank you so much, Mrs. A.
Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.